In this video, we're going to talk about the differences between cardiac muscle and smooth muscle. Cardiac muscle, as you can remember from their shape, they are branched, and so that is going to impact how they are excited, how they send their action potentials. They are connected via these intercalated discs, and at these intercalated discs, they have gap junctions. And these gap junctions allow for action potentials to move from cell to cell. Cardiac muscle, as you can remember, are striated. They may be multinucleated, maybe not. Sometimes they can be single nucleated, but they are involuntary like smooth muscle. They are myogenic, which means that they have their own pace. They are able to excite themselves. This is why, in Mortal Kombat, for example, they pull out a heart and the heart is still pumping, and that definitely occurs because action potentials can still occur, but then it does die down. Troponin is an effect of a myocardial infarction, and it can be released in the blood, so as a symptom of that. So it can be measured in labs, and that tells you if there is like risk of myocardial infarction. And so troponin has a different function here than in skeletal muscle, but measuring like the amount of troponin is a good tool to assess risk of heart attack. Smooth muscle have no sarcomeres, but they also have gap junctions. And so they're also able to send action potentials laterally, cell to cell, as they are attached together. They have way more actin than they do myosin, which allows for more stretching and more contracting. Smooth muscle contraction is a little different. It's also controlled by the calcium here, but there are little sarcoplasmic reticulum and there are no troponin or tropomyosin. And so the only proteins that are contractile here are actin and myosin. Calcium with excitation, with an action potential, calcium will enter through the plasma membrane channels and it binds with a protein called calmodulin, and it becomes this calcium calmodulin complex, which is going to activate an enzyme called MLCK, myosin light chain kinase. This is then going to phosphorylate or add a phosphate to your myosin, which is then going to allow myosin to form cross bridges with actin. It is now active, can form cross bridges, and now can shorten. Relaxation occurs when myosin gets dephosphorylated via myosin phosphatase, and then that way myosin will no longer form those cross bridges. Smooth muscle has slower and more sustained contractions than cardiac muscle or skeletal muscle. And this is so that it can maintain some action, but using very little energy. Single unit smooth muscle can be myogenic, which means they can activate themselves, send action potentials themselves. In this image, this is showing a neuron activating, and they have gap junctions, which means they are able to transmit action potentials nearby. Notice that this is a neuron with varicosities. We talked about varicosities in the last chapter. Varicosities allow for action potentials to occur down the length of the axon. This is also called synapses en passant. A multi-unit smooth muscle requires the activation or excitation from a neuron. And so this is showing you, a neuron activating these multi-unit smooth muscle fibers.